What's up, Go enthusiasts? Welcome to the first game of this year's Nongshim Cup, the very, very famous international tournament between Korea, China, and Japan. It's a team tournament, one of the few team tournaments that we have in Go. Each of the three countries sends their 5 best players, and the last team, it's a knockout tournament, the last team to have any players remaining wins. So you go in, you play your game, if you win, you stay in, if you lose, you go out. And the last team with at least one player left will win the tournament. Last year, Korea won. So went on a massive winning streak to win the tournament in the end. This year, China versus Korea is the first game. And China decided to send Koja as their first player. Normally the strategy in this tournament is to send the weakest player on your team first, so that at the end your strongest player can maybe carry against the remaining players in the field. If your strongest player gets on a roll and starts winning games, then they can win. But if you leave your weakest player for the end and the other team has their strongest player at the end, then maybe they would steamroll through, right? So Koja going first means that China believes Koja is their weakest player, maybe. That's crazy because Koja has the most world championships in the modern era of the modern players. He has more world championship victories than So, many-time world champion. And he did only barely squeak by to qualify for the Nongshim Cup to play for China this year. But still, he's a very, very strong player and very creative. I'd leave the board here. Look at this. This is unheard of these days. It used to be somewhat heard of, but people always thought that this enclosure is pretty bad because, in my opinion, of the way that it's typically played. A lot of people think, okay, you take this corner very loosely so white can try to invade it later, so your goal is to cover it. But Koja is going to show us otherwise. Koja is going to show us how you should actually play with this corner. And in my opinion, I think that this opening suits Koja really well. Technically, I think the AI docks maybe 1/3 of a point or something for playing this way. Of course, if you play 5-4, you're supposed to fix it and pretend that you played the 3-4 instead. And in general, you're not supposed to play 5-4 in the opening. But Koja does it, and it creates a position where that corner is still slightly unclaimed. It's at least much less controlled than it is in most normal corners. Koja is really good about playing for large, slightly unclaimed areas. So he's going to show us exactly how it's done. White plays the approach here, very natural move. And white should play something on the top side, otherwise black will pincer and start this, big moya. So he chooses to just approach to that corner in the upper left. And I think a lot of amateurs will just instantly kick here and try to keep the corner, but then you're still going to have problems taking it later. So Koja knows better. He says, I should pincer this. The way that we use this, if you have a large area slightly unclaimed, that slightly unclaimed bit is your weapon. It's not white's weapon. Or that's how you should play it if it's going to be good for you, right? If white can say, because this corner is not really yours yet, then I can just reduce it later whenever I want, and I can go take all these other things too, you're going to end up losing the game. It's not going to be very efficient. But if you say, go ahead, you can come in whenever you want, but I'm going to be getting the other things outside, and whenever you go in, it's not going to be that unsettled that you're comfortable, then this corner can actually be quite powerful. So white chooses to play outside. White could have been like, all right, well, I'm just going to come in and reduce your corner. But in this case, black can answer. Sure, you can say, oh, the black shape is kind of weird. But the white group is in trouble. White's got to run that somehow, maybe kick, maybe jump. And black will get this pincer himself. You can see black, his corner is no longer that slightly unsettled thing, but he's taking control against that one stone, against this group. So the fighting control has gone to black in this variation. This is how that kind of corner is supposed to work. You're not supposed to score in the corner, you're supposed to score in the rest of the board. So, Seo Hyun-jun, understanding this, he plays pincer, very reasonable. And now black plays here. This is, very argumentative style, where he's saying, isn't it all mine? Black does have control over that whole corner. It's just this unclear control. It's not settled. White can even invade directly. So white does that. White just invades directly. White says, alright, I'm going to live in the corner. And he plays here, and bang, 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 bang. And he's alive. Easily alive. But it was very bad for White, actually. Very bad for the standards of like the very early opening and the high level of play. Black is like 2 points better here or something. It was a bad strategy for White, and actually, amusingly, it also involved some bad shape understanding. First of all, I want to explain why White played this push. It's because he doesn't know this shape. He's never seen this before, and he's inventing it up on the fly, and he's like figuring out what he wants to do. And what he's seen before is he's seen this other Joseki, where, let's say Black does this, and White plays here. Okay, very natural. And let's say White approaches, and Black leans, and White plays away. So that can happen. In fact, White might even pincer here. That's a better way to set this up. So now, this is totally reasonable. And White will sometimes choose to invade in the corner. And in this case, White will choose to push here often, because if you play like this, you're actually just going to want to push here anyway. Actually, sorry, you're supposed to play the tiger. You're going to want to push here anyway, because if you take the life in the corner, Black gets to fix their cut, get all this power, and make some pincer, and Black feels really good on the outside. So White wants to get this push in, meaning there's still a cut on the outside, and when White plays this move at 20, then Black can't exactly kill the corner. I mean, locally this would die, except for the fact that there's an eye over here. So that push is designed to make an eye and make a cutting point in the shape in the future. Now let's compare that to the situation where White pushed. So White pushed, it still made the cutting point in the same way, but it did not make the eye shape. So that push was a really bad exchange, because if White would have just chosen to do this way, then White could have lived like this, and White can just choose to push later when he wants, but he doesn't have to. So it just is like strictly better to do it this way than to do it the way that he did in the game. That kind of like strictly better stuff, that doesn't happen very often in the opening for pros at this extremely high level. It only happened because Kaja played all these extremely unusual moves, and Seo Jun was making it up on the fly. He thought, I have to go invade here right away. Actually, even that strategy was wrong too. White could have just played from the outside. And this is the problem with this kind of mentality that you have as Black. I'm going to capture it all, but it's quite unsettled. Well, now, if you add another move, then it's still unsettled, and you add another move, so it's not that big anymore. And if you don't add another move, then White will just start coming in really deep and breaking it all apart. So this kind of move is the reason why this is problematic. It's because you can play on the outside as White. And I'm sure Black would continue to try to play on the outside. But the point is, this kind of unsettled area, the amateurish way to play it is to play it to just coalesce into a large settled area. But the professional way should be to fight on the outside using it as your threat. And that's what Koja did so well here. He ended up getting the outside and approaching here. And you can see the beginning of a really, really large area on the left side. And White is quite worried about that. So White chooses to play the high, very far pincer. This is like the most defensive reduction type move that White could possibly play in response to the approach. And Black played the slide here. He's obviously intending to defend his one stone, potentially counterattack that one stone in the future. This slide is becoming more common as a follow-up to like approach and then they play a move that's not that close. I can't say I really understand why, because it's usually pretty easy for White to show that they get stones in good spots. So in this case, White chose to cut first, which is slightly questionable. There was no real need to exchange the cut, and Black was pretty much always going to do that sequence. But anyway, White chooses to pincer. And Black should take care of his group, of his sliding group. If White gets to attack that by taking the 3-3 and then, taking the bottom side at the same time as it chases, that would not be good. So Black's like, all right, well, I want to make sure I attack your one stone in the corner and your one stone on the side. So he chooses to jump. And then White just saves the one stone very far. This is always difficult to deal with from the Black perspective. And in the game, Kaja chose to play here. He was thinking he wants a base with his his stones, and he wants to take the white base. But white just took this move. And you can see that this is somewhat like a normal Joseki. Like, I could put put the Joseki over here. Oops. Where black approaches and white does this, and black slides and white answers. Everybody's seen this Joseki before, right? This is like the first Joseki I ever learned. You approach, they back off, you slide, you try to get the corner, they stop the corner, and then you take your base. So in this one, both players get an acceptable amount, and usually it's considered that white is slightly better. Black doesn't slide anymore, black does other stuff. White is slightly better because white got the first stone as well, and because white is quite healthy and has a lot of potential territory. Black's potential territory is actually a little bit smaller because of the way that white has the first look at the corner. So that means that if you get the same shape, but your stone is one line further, it must be quite good for white. And this bottom left is indeed very, very good. That, going one line further, you would definitely do that if you knew you were going to play the 3-3. It's much more harmonious with this diagonal being very, very strong. So the reason why Kuja allowed this is because he thought that he was going to get something back on the left side, that he was now going to get an attack here, but white can just jump, and where is the profit really going to come from the attack? So I like the way that white played this in the bottom left, and I'm just quite confused as to why people play this slide. I don't think that it's very commonly, I've never actually seen it work out well for black. That's the way that I'll say. I've never seen black play the slide in a similar position to this and then actually get a lot of territory defending their group or a lot of initiative or something. It always seems to end up like this, where white gets this really wide shape, takes care of themselves everywhere. All the white stones are in great spots, and black is the one who's sort of floundering, looking for the place where they're going to get their value. Anyway, this somewhat nullified the advantage that black got from the upper left, but black is still maybe slightly leading. And he plays this bump, looking to attack the white group. White plays a bump back. It's going to be a fight between this white group and the black group on the bottom side. So black could run out directly on top of white, but then white will easily run as well. Nothing special will happen. So black tries to do something a little bit fancier. He plays here, trying to be able to block on the bottom side and get some potential territory. And he's waiting for white to cut. He played that forcing move that doesn't really do anything, but it denies white any potential to make an eye there, so I guess that's worth something. And then, so white cut. And black had planned on that. Black knew that white could cut, and he thought if he Ataris, then he can give white the bottom. Since white became very strong here, it's no big deal to give them territory where they're strong, particularly if you get influence towards where white is weak. And he starts this very strong attack. So Kuja is trying to say, hey, I'm not just going to run in a way that lets you run easily. I'm going to run in a way that makes it hard. So white has to figure out a way to solve his problems. And he finds this really nice move, the large knight. Black can't cut that right now because he's too weak in the bottom left. So he pushes. If he tried to cut, white could play like this. And if he really did try to cut, then white has this Atari, this bamboo, and this cut. Black could save his stones in the bottom left, but then white will play like this. I think black is in big, big trouble. Even there's other ways to play as well. You could play here first and then to play. Anyway. I think black is in big trouble here. If black fixes here, then of course white will be winning the capture race against this. Basically, this white will just not be that weak. White will have plenty of options to counterattack. So black is going to prepare that kind of sequence by pushing in the bottom side. This makes a lot of sense, because if white answers, then white kind of wants to answer again, and eventually black is going to get enough power that that kind of cut is really going to work. So Seol-Hunjun, he knew that. He knew that when he played this large knight's move that he was planning on playing another move locally, so he just plays that extra move, and he allows Kuja to play on top of his two stones. Kuja is happy because he got to run to the bottom side in a way that sort of blocks on top of the white shape over here. Seol-Hunjun is happy because he got to run out with his stones in a way that sort of threatens to get some area, make some space. Well, Kuja doesn't want that to happen, so he saves his one stone. I actually have no idea, by the way, why Kuja did not choose to play the simple pullback. To me, this is obvious. This just gives you much, much, much more power towards cuts and towards your own shape over here, and you don't actually want to threaten to connect to the left side because white can just push and sente at any time. So white answered, and then it pushed, and black answered. Actually, the AI was telling me something interesting here. I had the same thought as the players that we should be fighting in the center, that the control is going to be decided by who saves their group better, right? If white can be pushed towards this influence, then black might take control of the right side of the board. So white is really rushing to get towards the right side of the board first, try to get on top of this black. But however, the AI was saying that actually doesn't matter that much. Like, who has control of this fight doesn't matter as much as the fight on the bottom side. So it thought when Kutcha can play on the bottom side, that's actually quite good. And white was supposed to be like rushing over here to take this. Even though Kutcha can start some attack, then white will just save over here. This is quite a risky line of play, but I guess it could work. Actually, the move that Kutcha played on the bottom side, I didn't even think about when I was watching the game. I had no idea that this kind of move could even work or like be viable, because to me it's really intuitive to just push and push. This shape that you make is usually so annoying as white, because if they play away, then you can play this Atari, and the move here, answering at 70, it connects the stones. White has to do that, but other than that, it gets literally no value, like zero. Zero value of any sort other than just the fact that you connect to save the stones. And the black stone on the bottom, it does get value. It gets real value in the endgame towards reducing white and in the eye space and eye shape that black gets on the bottom side. So usually that exchange is so pleasant that even if the black pushes themselves aren't necessarily the best direction, I just try to get them anyway, and most of my opponents are definitely going to block and prevent me from playing that Atari, and then I can play whatever I want anyway. But Kutcha, he did this one, and the reason why, I think, is because he wanted to play away right away. I think he thought if he does the normal way, then white will play away, allow this, and actually that stone over here, it sort of nullifies the black wall. So it's kind of difficult for black to show that he's really putting his stones in the best spots here, even though white put a stone that's in a completely useless spot. At least white put a stone in the most useful spot as well, right? Kind of an interesting way to fight. And I also admire the Seolhan Jin move here. For me, it's much more intuitive to play this diagonal, which is also possible to play. But the problem with this one is that later black can descend, and then if white plays away, there's this great wedging move. And of course, white ends up in some big shape trouble. If he has to connect this, then this is very suspicious. So Seolhan Jin knew that was coming, and he thought, well, if I play here and this block ends up being sente, so I have to answer, then I actually get less power towards the bottom side, less territory potential than if I just play the direct descend and can slide or can pincer or whatever. So that makes sense. And Kutcha chose to play away. So Seolhan Jin played on the right side here because he doesn't want to let black start building there while attacking this in the center. And Kutcha just chose to take his territory in the upper right, make sure to jump out. He wants there to be a weak group in the top side, weak group on the right side, weak group in the center, and that he can get his value in territory in the remaining parts of the game. And he attacks this topside group in a really classic and good way, which is to Hane and connect. A lot of my students think that this is an early endgame move all the time. It's true, it can be an early endgame move. You shouldn't just do this in situations where you don't think you're attacking, don't think you're getting anything. But the reason why that black did that is if he would have attacked from the center, then white playing here is like white's forcing move, and white doesn't have any cutting problem anymore, nor does he have the reduced eye space that black manages to break so much. And black does have to answer because otherwise white will jump and start using the corner Aji. And you can imagine a sequence like this where the black stone in the center ends up being very low value while white managed to get territory answering it. So much better than that is to take territory yourself, let white play in the center. You can still attack it, yeah? And you can still use that cut. So white sort of has a problem forever. Black has more territory as well. Why not? Why not do it this way? Black doesn't continue the attack right away. He doesn't see any direct punch against white, which I agree with, and he just chooses to invade the corner. He actually plays this Hane, which I found very interesting. It's actually correct as well, which I also found very interesting. The normal Joseki here is, of course, to play this. Everyone's seen this before, right? I even have a video on like the reason why white isn't Haneing and stuff. But black didn't do this because he realized, okay, if white pushes, this area is meaningless. White is so strong, black is strong. Why am I putting the stones in this area and allowing white to put the stones in this area, save his groups, and build a huge moyo at the same time? That's not fair. So black chose to play like this because he wanted to rush to the right side. Well, white wanted to lean on this black. This got less power, a lot less power than the normal Joseki, but black invaded directly on the right. He's really, really hurrying to break this apart. And we have some sequence where white was trying to connect back and trying to attack this black. White captures here. And here we had another dramatic moment in the game. I think move 5 is the first dramatic moment, but this one was this one was talked about a bunch in some of the discords that I'm in. And people were like, did Koja just miss it? Because Koja is about to make a pretty big mistake. Maybe one of the biggest mistakes of the whole game. Actually, black is doing quite well. If he just saves all these stones, runs out, then white can get in trouble in the bottom right. Black can get in trouble too, but mostly white. Instead, he plays this move. So this is the move that people were wondering was a blunder. See if you can find out, by the way, how white can punish this. There's only one way for white to even be reasonably okay. And by doing that, white actually starts to lead for the first time in the game. Yeah, white chooses to cut here, meaning if black captures, then white can Atari. Now, of course, black connect would die, so black has to capture here. White can capture the 4 stones. So all that stuff where black was breaking the right side, thrown in the air, gone in the wind. Instead, black is choosing to reduce. And this actually is a reasonable variation as well, because black is going to Atari like this. And although white can try to fight the Ko, white would never win it. And if black would be able to capture that, black would be able to break the white base again and kill the 2 stones and stuff. So white needed to connect here. And it seems like the black reduction of the right side is not that bad. Black can still dream of attacking those 2 stones. White only has 10 points or so. Black's corner is still okay. Why do I say the corner is still okay? Well, if black had done the AI suggested way, the reason why people thought this is a blunder is because, of course, AI says that his score dropped a lot when he allowed that. AI wanted black to play like this, and then white jumped like this. I mean, this is an obvious move because it's aiming to surround the black in the center, and it's also aiming to block with a covered cut and try to kill the group in the corner. So now if black plays here, which I think is pretty much mandatory to run out the group on the right side, white can block. And although black can peep here, it turns out that if black would save this group in the corner, already white is doing well. White could push here and Hane, and this group in the bottom right is not going to be that weak. Turns out that the black group over here and the black group over there, those are the ones that are the real targets, since white can use the bottom side here, can use the stuff in the center as their resources. This is already not easy for black at all. That move is a mistake to save in the corner. Black is supposed to play capture and push, apparently, according to the AI. But when white Hane is here, that group in the corner is dead. This is a common life and death. I'm not really going to get into it right now, but you should know that this is dead. And Koja probably saw that, and he thought, well, I've invested my whole corner. right? That's all white's territory. I gotta get something back for this. So for this kind of variation to work, you've got to like kill the right side or kill the top side or get an enormous amount of value in the form of attack that will eventually kill something else later. Like, you've invested so much here that this turns out to be a risky type of game to play. And Koja does not, in general, like investing for attacks that can potentially be deflected later. Like, it's not clear that any of these white groups will ever die. So that's why Koja chose instead to play this way. He purposefully chose to play the variation where, yeah, he gives up the 4 stones, but white's area is still pretty compressed, and he still has some freedom into the center. He chooses to run like this, and you can see his idea is white doesn't get that much territory, I get some attack. You know, why would I go for the other variation where I'm attacking but I died in the corner when I can do some attack but I'm not died in the corner, right? Well, the AI disagrees, so now everyone thinks that Koja blundered his 4 stones. Yeah, that's definitely not the actual story here, but you know, this is the perks of watching with AI nowadays, is we get to misunderstand the top players in different ways. So white plays the turn here, and black is going to try to fight for territory. So he plays the descend. He's looking to link up to his group on the right side underneath. White obviously can't like block that because it's too small. White's got to run to the center, and black chooses to connect. White plays this bamboo shape. We get some fight in the center. Black pushes here, saying, I'm either going to push through the center or the top side. You know, that way or that way. You can't stop them both. So white chooses to block the top side. He's going to try to become strong there, and white can endure when black pushes through in the center. Actually, this Hane surprised me a bit because it seems pretty clear that white is going to Hane back, and then you can play this connect. And then why would you exchange that when you just let white have a good shape here to push like this? So to me, I like to do this kind of Hane a lot as well, but the problem with it is always when the opponent is like limiting you rather than trying to cut. Obviously the cut is no good because it's an empty triangle. But Koja can definitely read, okay, my opponent's going to Hane back and figure out a plan. And it feels like this plan, it turns out very similarly to if black does this, white does this, and then you push block for no reason, which is a bad exchange. I think the reason why Koja did it is because if he had played here, white would definitely not play this knight's move. White would take care of their group separately. Maybe there's this sequence, which is going to come later. And yeah, beating up these 5 stones is not that easy. So actually forcing white to have like this big vital point to play was kind of Koja's plan. I think he planned to take the slightly bad shape there in return for speed. So now he can connect under on the second line. That means he saves his right side group, and these 5 stones are separated from the other white friends that they have. So white saves them with the push here. Koja makes sure to stay connected, and then white plays this very, very valuable move on the left side. That clamp, there was no way for black to really reasonably resist it because he's potentially going to get weak on the left side and on the top side and all that. Black definitely had to capture those 2 stones, or, you know, aim at capturing those 2 stones, but it means that white can capture the black 2 stones, and yeah, this white area on the left side looks quite imposing, right? So white should be better. As we enter the endgame here, black plays this jump. So black is going to try to peep, put some pressure, aim at these 5 stones. He wants to make something interesting happen against the white weaknesses. Otherwise, black is just too low on territory to win the game. White plays this jump. He's making sure not to just like cut and allow a fight, which is not good. He's being much more patient than that and setting up good sequences for him to save his stones. Black turned here first. White exchanged this. This turn was interesting. I believe that these exchanges are aimed at preventing white from playing white's own potentially forcing move of the descend, which can aim at a cut and aim at attacking these 4 stones and attacking this group on the bottom side. Basically, when white played this jump, not only is it saving these 5 stones, but this group on the bottom side is much more surroundable. So because the group in the corner is also in trouble here, black is actually like getting a lot of debts built up throughout the board. This corner group, the side, the corner group over here. So by exchanging this push and Atari, black has made it so that white cannot easily access the black weaknesses there anymore. And then he's going to go on the offense and try to capture these 5 stones, or now 6 stones. White plays here. So white had a clear plan of action, which is black is going to try to cut, and then white will capture this 1 stone. And black did not do that. Black did something else. Of course, it would be just white's sweet dream for this kind of sequence to happen, and then you can't capture these, and the black stone is corralled. Wow, so nice, so beautiful. It would never happen. Black cuts here. This cut is directly capturable. So it looks like it's stupid at first. White plays this net, and that net works. So why did he do that? Well, he plays it out again. But this is how the net works. Like, white will just play on the outside here, and white has so much strength in this area. Look, that area is so strong. White's fine here. There's nothing for black to do with those 2 stones. What was he doing? He's making it so that this cut works. Now, when white cuts, black can play here. That's forcing. White needs to capture those 2 stones. White can't just hane and eat up those black 2 stones on the bottom side. That means black can cut on the bottom side. And now, black can capture race these 6 stones and win. That has suddenly become all black's territory. An immense, immense gain of points. Even white, reduced to this area, doesn't have any other points. The only bonus for white is that white gets a huge amount of power right here. So white says, okay, you're going to give me that much power just to try to capture me. Then that means I'm going to use that power and try to beat you up. White plays pulling out. Very, very aggressive move. And black answers by capturing this 1 stone, making sure that he saves his left side group. Actually, I didn't really understand how powerful that this move was. I thought, isn't white going to force black down and put black in a lot of trouble on the top side now? But because black captured that, black gets a lot of resources in the center now. A lot of resources that they're going to use to save this topside group if white really tries to attack it. And additionally, and maybe even more importantly, white actually could have captured here himself. And it probably was a better decision to do it like this, because if black answers somehow, it's very easy to imagine white just trying to exchange this 1 time, at which point this black group is cut. So these are going to be white sente. This, well, we're going to see this later in the game. This is white sente as well. Black will have to eat these stones. And this will be a very powerful attack against the black group on the bottom side. It really looks like black can get in big, big, big trouble here. So who captured that 1 stone was actually very, very decisive for who's going to take the initiative on the left side, and therefore the bottom side, and over here, and in the center, and everywhere. And when white cut here instead, allowing black to capture, that means that the left side black is very strong, so white needs to get everything back from his attack on the top side. There isn't that much to get back. It looks like that group is locally dead, because you can play here, and I mean, it's pretty obvious. You can Atari here if you want, but it's pretty obvious that this is not a living shape. Bang, bang. Right? So what is black planning? What is the point? How can black possibly live this group? Well, he has this move as his forcing move, and he has this move as his forcing move, and then he has this move. Now, if white tries to kill, then black can Atari, and obviously if white tries to save this, then this will be a Atari on that as well, and white is just completely falling apart since he hasn't even saved those stones yet. There's some crazy squeeze, like bang, bang. This is just for fun. Obviously, this kind of thing would never happen in the game, but white died. So, white can't kill that. Black has too many resources in the center due to having captured that 1 stone. So white gives up. He makes the squeeze in the center first. And white then proceeds to block over here. That's white's right. White proceeds to play this peep. And he even manages to cut off that 1 stone. So although white didn't exactly manage to make that much use out of this cut, since black managed to capture, black is not doing that well either. White still secured the block on the bottom side in sente, managed to cut this off. So there's a huge additional white area that wasn't exactly guaranteed or anything once this has solidified. So the game is still very, very close. This always happens with the top players. This is traded for that's traded for that's traded for that's traded. There's these small mistakes here and there, but no matter what, the balance is never easily broken. So black plays this push, white answers, black plays this move, and white answers here. Yeah, the reason why, of course, you wouldn't play here is because there's a peep and there's a problem. We don't want a problem. So instead of having a problem, white just gives up a little bit of territory. Of course, you know, if black tries to capture that one stone, he will live, but white's shape will be better as well. So black exchanges this move on the outside and then pushes here. And white uses that timing to take this very delicate, like, double sente. It may have been better for black to choose to try to take this himself. If he had, then he would be able to play here next anyway. But there's still a little problem in the corner. If you block here, then this is not exactly alive. White's this move is kind of sente. So you'd have to come back this way. And instead, when white uses this sente, then that you can answer. Like, first black is going to play here, and then you can block that over there. So you actually don't lose as many points as you think, although white doesn't expand their points. But the most important part of this is that because white had a cut over here, black's this move was a counterplay to this Hane Connect. So Kuja had endured this Hane Connect. He didn't take it on purpose because he thought, if white does that, this move will exploit white's liberty weakness. White can't go in here, because when black cuts and cuts, cuts like this, white is very scared. White is very, very, very dangerous in this kind of variation. So white answered, and then black could answer. Then, white took the corner. The corners are bigger than sides, are bigger than center in the endgame. It's very, very true. And black pushed here once. White exchanged a couple moves and answered by capturing. That was the best answer. So the meaning of the capture is that there's a lot of counterplay that white has against those 3 stones. And the left side group is still very, very weak. So if black tried to push through here, it's pretty certain that black will end up in big trouble, like either getting surrounded with this or surrounded with the left side group. So black has to go save that. He has to play the Hane, threatening to live, and then to link up underneath. And white could try to harass those 3 stones right now, but instead he finds the best move of saving the 3 stones of his own in the upper left. And the reason why this is so big is that it has some life and death implications for the black side top group. Black chooses not to capture a stone there. Instead he plays this peep, which means that white can play this move. So that peep helped black when it comes to saving these 3 stones of his own on the bottom side. But when white plays here, black has to answer. Just slightly painful, but not that painful because it also has an effect towards the upper left. All the life and death are getting involved. Classic strong player endgame. Every single weakness is used to maximum extent. White chooses to answer over there, and then black pushes through. Actually, white could have played here, but when black pushes here, if you have to fall back like this, it's so annoying because white now has only 4 points in the corner. Whereas if white could have just exchanged this, which looks like it's going to be forcing, right? It looks like it will be. Then now, even if black would push later, so if only black would answer and we could go back to answer, even if black pushes later, now it's 5 points. So it's 1 extra point in sente if black will answer due to the fact that you can live and you won't have any co-problem. You can just block without having to take the eye. Of course, the co-problem I'm talking about is that if here white blocks directly, then there's going to be a whoopsies like this. Actually, I think the AI said it was even still playable because white might be able to win the co and whatever. This is what happened in the game. White played here and black chose to trade. Very, very active play from both players, as we like to see. Black plays some forcing move, plays some Hane. And yeah, we get into the really tight endgame here, and it's a half-point game. It's an extremely close game. Black plays that cut, looking to secure some territory in the center. White plays this capture, forcing black to answer, getting some big reduction in sente. And white plays here. White was actually clearly leading the game until this move. This turns out to be a mistake after a very long and complicated sequence. And the judgment is not easy even at the end. So black has to play here. This is the only move, otherwise white will start reducing, connecting back to that stone, and forcing this whole black group to connect back through here, would force it to spend some extra stones capturing that one stone, connecting on the first line, and all that sort of thing. So black really wants to secure his connection between the left side and the right side. So that's what this is doing, is taking the territory, securing that connection, but it means white can push through, and black plays here. White just connects and lets black Atari. The reason why is that he can't play here, as black will squeeze it back, bang, 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 squeeze with that move, and then play here, now threatening to break through the bottom. So that's very, very valuable. Actually, I think there might even be a better way as well. But that way is good enough. So in the game, white does the connect, makes sure that he can reduce the center, and as I said before, white is really, really happy if they get to stop this left side from connecting to the center. So black captures once, that's forcing. White needs to answer to prevent black from capturing and Sente again, and then just living this, so none of it matters. And then black fixes his group in the center here. So white can make this double Atari, make a push and capture here. Black has to answer. And so finally, white has reduced a bunch of the area in the center, even maybe built a little bit of his own territory, maybe fixed this in a way that gains a little bit, but black got to capture 2 stones, black got to fix this, and black got to make sure that his left side is connected. So apparently it was like 1 point better than this if white would do this one, which looks like it feeds black bigger territory, but this move is a really nice move, which aims at, by the way, what I'm talking about over here, you can exchange all of these for free. And then after this cut, black has to later on connect here and capture this 1 stone in order to play, in order to save all these stones at the end of the game in order to play on all the dame. So this way, ultimately ended up losing like half a point or a point or something. I don't know. There's extremely different types of positions, so it's very, very difficult to count. And we enter a half-point game, which is extremely, extremely, extremely close. Actually, the commentators, with the help of AI, the commentators in the Asian languages apparently had called this game for Seoul Hunjin. They thought, white will win this game for sure. It's a half-pointer, but it's looking good for white, even still. They're playing a good endgame here. Yeah, this is high quality. And we're just entering the 1 point moves area. Black played this one to make sure that white couldn't make that ko, which that ko will then be for the whole life of this black group. So that ko will almost certainly work for white, but white will have to connect it back to save his own stones, and he would have this like half point in addition to reducing the black 1 point. So this seemed to be like a 1.5 point move-ish for black. And white played here. So, okay, we have a really, really complicated endgame sequence here. And it's worth explaining this time, because they actually blundered the game several times in the less than 2 point endgame. This very rarely happens, even at moderate professional level, let alone world-class professional level, let alone the first game of the Nongshim Cup, the most important team tournament of the year. Oh boy. Apparently, white can win right now, but not with this move. And black can win right now, but not with this move. And white can win right now, but not with this move. And then when black plays here, finally he's winning. So black and white were both supposed to play here the whole time. Okay, so how big is that move? Like, why is that move so important? Well, white captured there. If instead white had played here, then white would have half a point right here. And when black plays that in Sente, let's say black had played here, it's threatening a snapback to capture those 5 stones. White will definitely answer that. Then white does not have half a point there. So black can take a half a point Sente move right there. In contrast, these other moves looked like they're relatively bigger. Basically, if white would play that, that becomes a reverse Sente half-point move. So if you play a move in reverse sente, you should double its value per gote. So white was thinking this capture should be bigger than 1 point gote. Obviously, it gets 1 point by capturing, and if black would answer, then the situation is just better than if black would play without white having exchanged anything at all. So it seems like this move will gain for 1 point endgame. It gets 1 point, and if black answers, it's better than normal. And when black played here, it also seems like this move will gain for 1 point endgame. This one I have to explain a little deeply. Basically, white could have played this move in sente. Then black needs to play here, because if black does some other thing, then when white plays this move, not only does it take 1 point and make it so that it's white's right later on to reduce another point, but also white doesn't have to spend a move connecting these stones anymore. So now wherever black goes, let's just pass. Then white will get to push here. That will be white's right. So white gets like 3 points there. That means that white could play here and black will play here all the time. Now in comparison, black rushed to play this move himself, preventing white from doing that. That could mean that black will descend next and get 1 extra point. In the other variation, black, did not have this one particular point as his area. You see? That one is up for debate. Normally, we're not going to see black block that. In most endgames, we're going to see black continue to play and white continue to play. And white, much later on, we're going to see this shape. So, sneak peeks into later in the game. White will usually play that hane, and then usually black will get to play this block. Actually, white could have continued in that variation, but the cut caused him not to be able to. All right, let's go back to to the drawing board here and really try to figure this out. If white plays here and black plays this one, then white can't connect because it's double Atari. White will have to owe a move, and black can play here. And now, if black wins this ko, black captures 1 white stone, the 1 white stone that white played. If white wins this ko, then white will capture 1 black stone, but black also originally captured 1 white stone, so it's 0, right? So the situation we have right now is a ko where black stands to gain 1 point by capturing this stone if black wins. If white wins, it's 0. So the current state of the ko is somewhere in between those. You can actually count this. You can say, how many steps would it take for me to get to either result? So the current state of the ko, if black plays, black can directly get 1 point. If white plays, white will need to play 1 more time after that to make it so that it's a sum total of 0 points for either player. So the current state, you can say each of those moves is equivalent. Then the current state is 2/3 of the way to black having a point, right? So 2 steps away from white having 0, from black having 0, and 1 step away from black having 1. So this ends up being a 2/3 of a point position. That means when black played here, this was 2/3 of a point reverse sente. Compared to if white would play, right, there would be a 0 points. And the actual game, if white will play that hane and the expected sequence plays out, then white ends up allowing black to try to fight that ko for 1 extra point, capturing their stone. So then why would it ever be, this is 2/3 of a point reverse sente. On the other hand, white could play a half point reverse sente. Why could this possibly be a blunder? Because 2/3 is bigger than a half, right? I mean, this, by the way, do you understand why I meant that the center there, why this is half a point? Obviously, this is half a point because if black gets it, it's a point, or it's no point. If white gets it, it's a point, right? So the initial position itself, you judge it as half a point. So that's half a point there. That's 2/3 of a point. Why would you rather take the half point than the 2/3 point, right? It doesn't seem to make sense. This is the Nongshim Cup. They're thinking for 60 seconds in their Byomi. They have plenty of time. It's not like this is just a simple miscalculation why they kept blundering. No, the reason why it was important to play that push all the time is that when black plays this push and denies white the half point reverse sente, in addition, he gets 2 ko-threats. Later in the game, black can capture that one stone. Then white will be able to recapture. So it doesn't do anything to the sum total of white's territory. But it does give black a co-threat. White has to recapture. And after white recaptures, black can cut again, and white will have to answer again. And again, it would be that black gets a co-threat. So those two co-threats actually matter so much in a way that the players never expected. Never expected. It turns out, as we played the game, they played it all correctly. I'm skipping through it here. Maybe I should just go through properly here. They played it all correctly, all the way through the end. Kudja really prioritized this upper left ko. You might have been confused earlier about why he didn't just immediately play on the right side when you were just going to play on the right side eventually anyway. Well, the reason is that he wanted to fight that upper left ko really, really hard because he recognized if white wins that ko, white would get a local ko threat, right? So each of the half-point kos, sorry, I say half-point kos, we have this terminology. We call every ko in the endgame that I just explained about the 2/3 to 1 point. So that happens all the time. In fact, there's 4 of them on the board right now. There is a half-point ko here, a half-point ko here, a half-point ko here, and a half-point ko here. So there's 4 half-point kos on the board right now. When we say half-point ko, it's a funny terminology because there's actually no such thing. As far as I know, there's no way to even construct a position where you have a ko and the value in the ko is half a point exactly. I tried once and I failed. I could not ever construct a position like that. What we really are talking about when you talk about half-point ko is the half point that you win or lose the game by. And these kos are generally decisive in a half-point game. Because if you can manage to win the last ko, you will get 1 more point than the other guy, so you can switch it from them being winning by half a point to you being winning by half a point. In actual fact, each of these kos that I've highlighted, when you play a move there, it's worth 1/3 of a point. And you'll see that as they finish off the kos in the game here. Black is currently fighting over the biggest 1/3 point ko, because if white would win that one, he would get 1 extra ko threat for the other kos. I know this is going kind of crazy right now, but it's very cool. It's very cool. Because at the very end of this here, after all the ko threats are said and done, white filled this ko, so black filled 1 ko, and white filled the other ko. So white managed to win 2 of them, black managed to win 1, and then black manages to go back to the last one. If you had a ton of different kos and each of them were in the same state, then you would assume that the guy who's winning it, let's say you had let's say you had 6 different half-point kos. You understand what I'm talking about. If you had 6 different half-point kos, all with white having captured the stone, right? Then white would be able to fill 1, black would capture 1, white would be able to fill another, and black would finish it, right? So white would get 2 and black would get 1, and you'd keep doing that process. So the end of 6 half-point kos, all favoring white, should be white connects 4 of them, black connects 2 of them, right? That's why ultimately we judge it as 2/3 or 1/3. We're judging these based on expected value. Expected value is not the same as real value. The real practical way that the game ends is with the last ko. And the way that it worked, although black didn't take the half-point move, he took the 2/3 point reverse sente. He managed to get the half-point 1/2 and the 2 ko threats. That made it so that in the end here, white gives up the ko. White gives up the last ko because white has now 1, 2, 3 ko threats. And black has 1, 2, 3, 4 ko threats. Note, that's so important. This area, that was the critical area. The fact that black got 2 extra ko threats there wins the last half-point ko, gaining a full point. Compared to these little tiny expected value judgments that we were making before, 1 full point is enormous. And because of that, Kudja luckily wins the game. White can only back off, let black connect here, and Kudja wins by half a point. In the final less than 2 point endgame, by playing the reverse 2/3 point and getting the half point plus 2 ko threats sente move, Kudja manages to win. Crazy game. Remember, this is the same game which started with Kaja playing 5-4 point. He played 5-4 point this game. Can I skip to that? Look at this. He played 5-4 and then he followed up with 3-5 and made this enclosure. And then later on, he apparently seemed to blunder. He seemed to blunder his 4 stones here. The people weren't sure what's going on. And at the very end of the game, at the less than 2 point, at the 1 point end game, the game was blundered 4 times in a row. Because at any point there, if Seol Jun had cottoned on, if he realized, oh, hang on a second, it's really important. Instead of playing these moves, which he thought, Seol Jun thought that these moves were each bigger than 1 point. Look, this secures 1 point territory and prevents black from being able to fight that ko as well. So it looks bigger than 1 point, right? But turns out, bigger than 1 point, not as much as half point reverse sente plus 2 ko threats. Even though black can play this 1 point move, plus have 1/3 equity of a point against that ko, the 2 ko threats and the 1 point move value over here was worth more. It's impossible to calculate that. There's no way humans can get that right every time. It's frankly just luck. Luck for Kaja that he managed to get that forcing move. Seol Jun didn't manage to find that way to win the game. I mean, there were so many ko's at the end, it was almost certainly impossible to figure out who was winning the half-point game from the player's perspective. There's even this ko going on, and like others. The end game is not easy at all. Crazy game. So dramatic. Absolutely love it. Game 2 happened recently. I'm going to cover that one next. Game 3, just as dramatic. Very, very dramatic as well. I hope you stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.